Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Bachani, and I am your host and holistic health and hormone coach. And I just love these interviews. I love that I get to share a new expert with you ladies every single time. And the amount of knowledge that I gain and you gain is incredible. So without further ado, I would love to welcome Elyse Schunkewitz. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope I said your name right
You actually got
okay.
it. I was like waiting. I was like, wait, we didn't review the name. I hope she
I know I was
I
looking at
don't
it, I was
care if you
like,
say it
we're
wrong,
just
but
gonna go for it. But
yes,
I
yes,
can
you
tell
got it.
Elyse and I have really not actually met in person. And that's the beauty of this type of summit. It is so amazing because I get to bring you experts from all over the world. Right now we're bi-coastal, but it's just really amazing how I can bring all these amazing experts with their varied education and experience and backgrounds. And speaking of, let me give you the proper introduction because I think that will help everyone understand where you're coming from a little bit more. So Elyse is a holistic and functional psychotherapist, leveraging her expertise in functional neuroscience and medicine, somatic therapies, psychology, and fitness to empower high achievers. With a background as a clinician in the Bellevue Hospital psychiatric emergency room and personal experience overcoming burnout and medication reliance, she pioneers true holistic psychotherapy with specialties in nervous system regulation, medication, alternatives, and habit change neurology. Elyse extends her transformative approach nationwide, training medical providers on how to integrate brain and body-based training into lifelong mental wellness. Wow, Elyse, it sounds like you do have quite a story as to how you got into this. I guess first of all, what is a holistic and functional psychotherapist, and how did you get into that?
So I would say that a holistic and functional psychotherapist, which I don't know anyone else who's doing what I do. So I would say I kind of coined the term myself, is someone who has the ability to engage in more conventional talk therapy and integrating more conventional Western psychology models into treatment, but really takes a true holistic approach in the sense that I am not just thinking about the mind. I am thinking about how are you breathing? How are you sleeping? How are you eating? Are you getting out in the sun? What are your relationships like? What supplements might help you? Everything that might be contributing to the presentation that we're seeing right now when you come to work with me. And over the course of my many, many years, starting as a young teen in therapy, I found that a lot of the time it just wasn't so helpful. Like there's a lot of great psychotherapy modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy and interpersonal work and dynamic work. But at the end of the day, I always felt like something was missing. And once I entered this world of holistic and functional medicine, I realized there's actually a lot missing in the picture. And, you know, connecting it to nutrition and hormones, which is what you talk about, and this summit is about menopause. Even just learning about hormones, which is not something I ever learned in social work school. It's not something I ever learned when working at Bellevue Hospital, and understanding their impact on mental health was huge for me. So, for example, when I work with women who are perimenopausal, and a lot of times they'll come to me and they'll be experiencing anxiety or depression, I think a traditional, more conventional psychotherapist, they would be trained to send them to a psychiatrist, right? Oh, you're anxious, you're depressed, our talk therapy isn't working. And that's not how I operate. I really look to see, are the foundational things working well, right? Like I said earlier, breathing, sleeping, moving, hydration, things like that. But then I also have gynecologists I refer out to, or hormonal specialists like yourself, to actually look to see what's going on with that person's hormones. Because more often than not, it's actually their perimenopausal state that's contributing to the anxiety and depression. And if we can actually heal them at the root cause or help them with their hormones, then those symptoms will usually alleviate, which is amazing. And I think is such a better alternative for most people than, just starting psychiatric medications, at least to explore that first and foremost before going to the medications.
Yeah, so actually, you work a lot with the perimenopause and menopause population. What do women come to you with, what are the kind of the foremost symptoms that you see, the kind of you probably see a lot of similarities of women coming in with similar issues and complaints. What do you see most often?
Yeah. So a lot of the things that you talk about and why you're putting the summit together. So anxiety and depression, sleep issues, weight management issues. And then on the more kind of mental emotional side, a lot of it is around identity crisis.
Mm.
So I'm working with a few women actually right now in my practice who their kids are about to leave for college or they're in college and they're like, whoa, my entire life was about taking care of my children and raising my children. I don't even know what I want or what I like. And I've worked with a lot of women who struggle with this, and they also may have people pleasing tendencies. So they tend to, they've been trained to abandon their own needs and their own desires in order to take care of everyone else around them. So a lot of the work we do in that area is actually teaching them how to understand what they want and what their needs and desires are and what are their interests and what are the things they want to explore so that they can start to maybe overcome those people pleasing tendencies. And also, and that's not everybody, but I'm seeing that a lot, particularly right now. And in my, sometimes there's like themes when people are coming in at the same time, and I'll see a lot of the same things, but that's what I'm seeing a lot of. And then really the identity and finding what is it that they want. I'm coaching people through career changes sometimes, figuring out, they want to develop new hobbies or interests, and where do we start from there, right? Because it can be really overwhelming and nerve-wracking to be a woman in your 40s or 50s and be like, I don't know if I know myself, or I don't know what I like or what I want. So that's in the more mental emotional side of things is what we've been working on as well.
Wow, yeah, I can see that. I mean, I don't yet have empty nest. I'm not an empty nester yet, but even with just a high schooler, I can see my whole life is changing. So I can completely understand that that's a huge shift.
Mhm.
So with all this change and with all these struggles, I would imagine that, there has to be like, women in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even older, like we've been doing things for a certain way a long time now at this point in our life, midlife or beyond. Is there a struggle to change? I mean, do you work with like habit changing? How does this process work?
Yes, it is very hard because the older we get and the more we do with our habits, which are the things that are naturally ingrained in us, we don't even have to think about them. The heart, the more that myelin sheath gets, solidified in the brain and our habits become more of a repetition over time and they're harder to break. So a lot of the work I do with people is the neurology and psychology of habit change integrated with, what do they want to change? You know, a lot of the times we're running so unconsciously in life, just doing the things we needed to do to survive. And
Autopilot.
yeah, and we don't actually get a chance to think about what is it that I want or how is it that I want to feel. So when it comes to just figuring that out, a lot of that is somatic work of being able to listen to your body and feel the feelings and the emotions that come up to learn how to not suppress them because I think it doesn't matter if how you identify in your gender. I think we all struggle with as people, as humans, especially in the Western culture, we struggle with feeling our emotions. And we have so many people who are addicted to alcohol, addicted to shopping, addicted to food, addicted to drugs. And it's just a way to push it all down. And we become so out of touch with who we are and what we want because we're so afraid and terrified to feel these really uncomfortable, yucky emotions. So I really start there with people like with my clients. How do I start to get you to feel comfortable feeling uncomfortable emotions and sensations that come up in the body? And when you can start to feel those things and tap in, you become more intuitive and you become more in touch with what you want and what you don't want. And then from there, we work around, okay, now you're able to identify what it is that you want. How do you start to actually explore those things or speak up for yourself or go and do those things, even if anxiety is going to stop you? Because a lot of the times, like I said earlier, people pleasing tendencies might stop someone from doing things, or fear of rejection or social anxiety, or fear of looking like a fool if you pick up a new career or a new hobby. So how do you start to develop coping skills to manage those anxieties that might come up when you go and pursue something that actually interests you or excites you, or putting up boundaries with people? A lot of times I see women in their 40s, 50s, 60s who have a lot of trouble with boundaries because they weren't taught to have boundaries. They were taught to just do everything for everybody else and not care for themselves. And then when it comes to habit change, really diving into how do you actually make sustainable change long term, which is something I think everyone struggles with. It doesn't matter your age, but
Mm.
like you said, as you get older, you're used to doing things a certain way. So how do we start to break things down? You come to me and you're like, I want to do this thing differently, Elyse. And we actually start to break it down and get into, like I said, the neurology and psychology of habit and behavior change.
Okay, before we dive into that, which I do want to dive into that, the
Yeah.
neurology and the psychology of habit change, because that's really important. I want to back up and just kind of clarify or drill down on something you said where what I heard was you were actually saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in order to enhance your or train your brain for peak performance or enhance your brain function, you first have to dive into kind of the emotions in the body and
Mhm.
process that first. Does that then open up your brain to be functioning better? How does that work?
It allows you to function better in the sense that it's the key to success. Being able to sit with uncomfortable emotions and not push them down
Mm.
allows you to not be afraid of them. And a lot of the times people avoid doing things they actually want to do in life because they're afraid of feeling the uncomfortable emotions that might come with doing that thing. So if you take, right now I'm working with someone who's had a very successful career in the tech industry. And she's been miserable. She came to be completely burned out, perimenopausal, and she has this amazing ability to connect with others and coach them. And she's done a ton of kind of informal coaching in her day-to-day life, in her career. And I suggested, why don't you make this into a career? You're so miserable in your current career, you're burnt out, you're unhappy. And this is something that seems like you really are passionate about. And she was terrified of the idea of doing this, right? Because it's like, what if no one wants to work with me? What if I'm not successful? What if I'm actually not good at what I do? A lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of even just things of like feelings of shame and guilt from childhood that she's
Mm.
brought with her over the last few decades. So once we were able to work through being able to just feel that discomfort, that fear of not succeeding, that fear of being judged, she was able to go out and actually start the business. So
Mm.
that's really where sitting with those uncomfortable emotions, letting them metabolize, but not let them drive you is the key, I think, to success in life and ultimately peak performance.
Yeah, I can see that. That's really profound and mind-opening. It's seeing it from a different way. We usually go to the brain first, and
Yes.
you're saying, no, we can't forget about the body and the emotions that are sitting there. Yeah, what your the feelings. Okay, I definitely want to spend a good amount of time on the neurology and the psychology of habits
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
changing habits, creating and changing habits, because no matter who you are, no matter what season of life you're in, perimenopause, menopause, like it doesn't really matter. Most of us are trying to change something or many things to improve our health. And, it's a journey. And so we're always looking to enhance and add on. But a lot of us get stuck in the habit changing, or we start something, we fall off the wagon. I mean, I bet if
Yes.
I could have everyone in the room here physically, and I asked them to raise your hand if you've ever said, I'm going to go to the gym after the new year and I'm going to get in shape. And then come like a couple days, maybe a couple weeks, life happens and you're done. Like you're not going anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very common for all of us. It is a
Yeah.
natural part of it. And actually, the stages of change, which we'll touch on, people usually go through this cycle. I believe it's 8 to 12 times before they actually successfully create a new habit.
No way. 8 to
Yeah.
12? All right.
Yeah.
What if I'm on like 16? No, I'm kidding.
that we might have to
I think
figure
many of
out.
us can understand that because we've been there.
Exactly. So it's so normal, and we'll definitely dive into this, but habit change is one of the most neurologically draining things that you can do. It takes up so much energy.
And we're already tired.
And we're
Come
already
on.
tired and we're already stressed out. So of course it's normal. It's actually very normal to fail at habit change many times. And if you can think about it as more of a trial and error process where you're collecting data and seeing, where it went well and where things didn't go well, and then start to shift things, that's one of the key ways to have more success. But there's a lot of other tips that we'll definitely be talking about today.
Oh yeah, well let's just dive in because I think this is actually really important.
Mhm.
Everyone here is wanting to change something, and like I think understanding how the process and why things might go awry, that's
Yes.
really helpful because then we're all trying to change something, so let's dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the first number one thing you have to ask yourself when you are thinking about changing a habit is, what is my why? Why do I want to change this habit? Because if you are not on a seven, at least a 7 out of a 1 through 10 in your determination to change this habit, and it is so important to you and you know exactly why, then you probably will fail at succeeding at it overall because it just doesn't matter to you. And I think it's really important to get so honest and real with yourself, because we all try to implement habits into our life that we think are going to be really good for us. But at the end of the day, we might not really care about all of that. Like, they might not have really inherent value to us. So that's a really important thing to then figure out, where do you want to dedicate your energy to in terms of changing your habits? One of my favorite quotes is, with a dream, there's no reason to have a crisis. And that is saying, basically, if you have a vision, if you have a dream, if you have a goal and purpose, there's no reason to really struggle because your eye is on the prize, right? That is the thing that gets you up in the morning and excited to take on the day. So if you're not really sure where you're going or what you're doing or what your why is, take some time to sit back and just evaluate. Why do I want to implement this new habit into my life? Is it going to improve my health? And why is that important to me? Because I want to feel good as I get older. I want to, feel good with my kids and taking care of maybe grandkids at some point, right? Do I want to be able to pursue an activity or hobby that I really like? Figure out what this small habit is connected to in the bigger picture, because that's going to be a huge driving force. That makes sense so far?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm just sitting here like taking it all in and nodding my head because it makes so much sense.
Yes.
So what, you said the why is the most important part, but then you also kind of said that when you ask women what they want, many women can't answer that. So is there a gap there?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what a lot of the work I do with people on the more, I would say, conventional therapy coaching side of things is figuring out what is it that they want. And it's okay to not know. I also want to say that it's okay to not know what you want right now, because it's a great time to explore. Like, how
Yeah.
exciting is it that you have this opportunity to try new things and new hobbies and see what interests you and see what excites you? And I like to integrate a lot of different tools into this, some journaling, a lot of, journaling prompts and questions, but I even like to look at things like, for depending on who it speaks to, astrology or human design. I don't know, are you familiar with human design at all?
I just started learning about it. Actually, one of the experts on here kind of touched on it a little bit, but not too
Okay.
much. Kavita Shah Sahai was one of the other experts that touched on it.
Oh,
But
nice.
we didn't talk at length about it. So if you want to, wherever you want to go with this, we're all
Yeah,
ears.
I will say I'm also fairly new to human design, but
Yeah.
what it is, it's a subcategory of astrology that talks about how you do things best. And it actually pulls up your gifts. It tells you what your gifts are in life and your life theme and how you operate. And I found it really helpful for clients who are interested in learning about it to better understand that their intuitive gifts are actually the thing that's going to make them the most successful. So that thing that you feel drawn to, but you're like, I don't know if I want to do that. Like, that's so cringy, or like, I'm going to be judged. That might actually be the ticket to like getting to where you want to be. So
Mm,
what's really cool about it is like, if you're really good at connecting with people, or you're really good at coaching people, or you have kind of like a a personality where you bring a lot of fun, right? It might come up in your human design, and it just reinforces like, go do that thing. Go do that thing that you feel intuitively drawn to, because that's what's going to bring you joy. That's what's going to bring you success. And ultimately, it's going to make you happy. So I like to integrate some human design sometimes in that area.
yeah. Now, as we're talking about, habit change and the psychology and neurology around that, it does sound like many of when you start with your why,
Mhm.
many of people's whys sound like they are something positive or goal oriented, or I want to run a marathon, or I want to start a new career and be a life coach, or whatever it may be. What do you say to the woman that's like, I just want to get rid of my hot flashes, I just want to stop, with the brain, I don't want brain fog anymore, I just want to lose 25 pounds? Those are different. Is that a vision? Is that your why?
I would say it definitely can be a goal. Ideally, we would connect it to a larger goal, right? It's
Okay.
like, why do you want your hot flashes gone? I mean, they're not fun for anybody, of course. The brain fog is not fun for anybody.
Yeah.
But just keeping in mind, if it's connected to something bigger, right? Even if it's just, I want to feel good, right? I want to live my life, and I want to be able to slow down and enjoy and be present. And these hot flashes and this brain fog is really stopping me from being able to do it. That's a great goal. You don't have to have the most ambitious goal in the world. But as long as it's tied to something, and you remember, you keep in mind, why am I doing that thing I'm doing? Because I'm sure like you've had so many experts talk about different tips and things that people
Yeah.
can do to help address those symptoms, that those menopausal symptoms that women are having. And, when you're thinking about, I'm going to use like a very basic example. When you're thinking about hydrating more, or eating better food, or making
Okay.
sure you're getting outside for your circadian rhythm, you might be like, oh, this is not what I want to do right now. Like I don't want to drink more water. I don't want to make sure I get outside in the morning. I don't want to go walk. But when you remember, oh, that's the thing that's going to help me feel better and overcome these symptoms, and it's going to just help me live a more pleasant, calmer, peaceful life, then you'll be like, oh, okay, now I
So
got to
it's
do
more,
this thing.
yeah. So it's more of a mindset shift from like not focusing on what you don't want or what you don't want to feel, but more to what you want to feel like.
Yes,
I
yes,
got it. And that makes more
definitely.
sense. So then once you establish your why, and that sounds for some, it might be a big step, like that might be a process.
Mhm.
Once you get there, what's next?
So what's next is understanding that in order to be successful with habit change, you need to spend time preparing. So I referenced the stages of change earlier, how we go through that
Mm-hmm.
many times. I'll go through the stages really quickly. You have your pre-contemplative stage, which is the stage where you don't even realize there's a problem, right? There's nothing wrong. I don't have an addiction. I don't have an issue drinking water. Nothing's there, right? Then you move into contemplation. And contemplation is the stage where you're thinking, huh, maybe my actions and behaviors right now are not actually aligning with what I want, or who I want to be, or how I want to feel. So you're starting to think, maybe I need to make some change. From there, you move into the preparation stage. The preparation stage is, I'm getting ready to make change. What are the things that I have to do to actually get to where I want to be? Then you move into action. So you take all that stuff you prepared and actually put it into action. And then you have maintenance, you doing that thing long term sustainably. And then unfortunately you have relapse most of the time until you got
Oh, I
there.
thought we were done.
We're done. I know, right? So eventually you get to maintenance and it stays. Here's the thing most people don't realize is they need to spend time on preparation, right? They watch these videos and they go, yeah, I'm ready to go do that thing that doctor nutritionist told me to do, and I'm going to do it tomorrow, and it's going to be awesome. This is why people fail, because in order to prepare, you need to have skills, tools, and time. You need those three things to successfully prepare. So Let's think about that person who wants to start cooking more food at their home, right? They want to stop ordering out so much. They want to start buying more organic produce. They want to start learning how to cook more delicious, healthier meals. You need skills. You might not know how to cook, right? You might need to watch some YouTube videos, watch some Food Network, figure out how to cook. You need tools. You need to actually get the food. You need the pots and pans. You need the stove. You need the oven. And you need time. You need the time to go to the grocery store or order your groceries if that's what you do. And you need the time to cook. You also need the time to eat. A lot of us just don't ever make time. We are like shoving food in our mouths because we don't make the time to eat, right?
Right.
So before you get so excited and jump right into it, I suggest spending time really thinking about what are the skills, tools, and time that you need to make this habit successful long term. Because when you set aside that time to invest in actually figuring out what you need, that is what's going to make it sustainable. If you just jump right into trying to do it, you may be successful for a few days or a few weeks, but you're probably not going to be successful longer than that. It's not going to be sustainable. So that's really the biggest, outside of the why, what's your why? The next biggest thing is take the time to prepare, even if it means delaying the action, because it will mean that you will be able to maintain the habit longer term.
That makes so much sense. Okay, so now that we've, discovered our why, we've prepared, what's next? Do we get to start now?
Yeah, not yet, not yet.
Oh, not yet. Oh gosh.
Not yet. Three more big things that I always tell people. First is understand that habit change takes time and be compassionate, right? Like self-compassion is so important when it comes to these things because you may very well fail, and think about, I know you're in California, but I grew up on the East Coast, the Northeast, where there's snow, right? And I always use the analogy of sledding. So imagine you've been sledding down the same path all day long. And eventually that path gets so packed down and icy that the sled it slides right down, no problem. Those are your already established habits. You don't even think about them. Now imagine you take that sled over to a fresh pile of snow right next to that path, that first path that you've been riding down all day, and you try to get that sled to go down the fresh powdered snow. It's going to have a really hard time getting down at first, right? Like you might have to really, push your weight forward to get the sled down. You might have to get up and get off the sled and push it a little bit. It's going to be really challenging. That's what creating a new habit is like. It's bumpy. It's uncomfortable. You're probably not going to get it perfect the first few times. So be gentle on yourself. Know that that's a normal part of habit change. And I think especially women, we're so hard on ourselves. We have such high expectations. We want to do things perfectly. And then we're like, it's like an all or nothing. Well, I can't do it perfectly, so I might as well give up, right? Remember to come from a place of self-compassion. Habit change cannot come from a place of self-hate. Sustainable change comes from a place of love and self-compassion. And there's this idea that Kristen Neff talks about. She's kind of like the self-compassion queen. She talks about gentle self-compassion and fierce self-compassion. Gentle self-compassion is about accepting yourself where you are right now. And acceptance doesn't mean giving up. Acceptance doesn't mean I don't have to change it. Acceptance just means know what this situation is at the moment and just be okay with it. You don't need to like it, but just be like, this is what it is. This is what my weight is right now. This is the situation, Fierce self-compassion is about taking action to alleviate suffering. So fierce self-compassion is going ahead and making those habit changes, but you really need both in order to make habit change sustainable. So remember the sledding analogy when you start to make changes and show yourself some love and compassion.
Well, and even if you quote unquote fail as you're changing, I bet you're still further along than before you started.
Absolutely.
There's still progress happening.
Yes.
You're failing forward.
Yes,
and I don't even like to use the word fail, but it's, commonly used in our communities. But
I feel the same way. You're learning, you're growing, you're figuring out. I mean, I have plenty of times, I come up with a plan with a patient and I say to them, try this out. And I want you to come back and honestly tell me what happened. I don't want you to, sugarcoat it, or the last thing I want is for them to feel shame or, shame over not being able to do it. As I said, this is information. So when you come back and tell me what worked and what didn't, we can then go back to the drawing board and make adjustments and figure out what might work better next time.
And if there was a one size fits all, that person who developed that one way would be a bazillionaire because it would work for everyone. But clearly that hasn't happened. So
No.
everyone is so unique that, like you said, it's information. We're learning as we're going. I'm guessing the most successful people are the ones that take in the feedback and make adjustments. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just think about it as data collection. Everyone is so different. Everyone functions differently. And I've been going to, this is for another time, like the four tendencies from Gretchen Rubin, how people respond to internal versus external expectations, right? So like if I have someone sitting in front of me, do they respond really well when they tell themselves they're going to do something, or if I hold them accountable? So if I'm holding them accountable, if there's someone who responds really well to external expectations, I need to talk to them very differently than someone who's like, yeah, I'm good. I got this. I'm going to go home. If someone needs me to hold them accountable, I'm sitting there and we're figuring out exactly when are they doing this thing. They're going to text me when they do it, or I'm going to text them, and we're going to have a very specific plan to hold them accountable. If there's someone who is what's called a questioner, that's someone who only responds really well to internal or external expectations if they really understand the why. I also have to talk to them differently than someone who might just be like, I'm good. You tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. So there's like all this different psychology involved in understanding how you operate.
And I love this period of time, this season in women's life where it's kind of a transformation. Like I hate to use the word transformative, but I feel like going through perimenopause and menopause can be transformative. It's like a rebirth almost. We get to really get to know ourselves and almost redefine ourselves in a way. So this is really cool because as we figure out what our want is, what our why is, what we want and why we want it, and then we start going through these habit changes, it's a whole self-discovery process.
Yes, which is really cool and
Yeah.
exciting,
Yeah.
and especially because we know how, our culture, our modern culture views aging. Like everyone is terrified. I can't tell you how many women I have in my office who are terrified of aging. And I just think, look at all the wisdom you get to develop as as you get older, and think about how much you get to learn about yourself. And I think about even, the freedom that comes when you do actually tackle your deepest fears, or going back to earlier, being able to sit with uncomfortable emotions and feeling free to go do the things without judgment, without worry about how other people are going to think of you.
That's one of the things I hear from women in their 40s and beyond the most is that I just don't really care what other people think anymore.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but just like I feel free.
Yes, it's freedom. It's amazing. It's something that you don't have at a younger age typically.
Yeah. So are we at the point where we change our habits yet? Or are we still building?
Two more things.
Okay.
I'm gonna make them quick. Habit change, because it's very neurologically draining. Like I said earlier,
Yeah.
nervous system needs to feel calm. It needs to
Mhm.
feel good. So you really want to think, if your stress bucket is overflowing, right? If you have work stress, if your sleep is poor, if you're getting into a fight with your partner, if you are just, if you have a lot of pain, obviously you probably need to make habits you probably have to make habit changes in order to actually address those things. But remember that when your nervous system is feeling over flooded, it's going to be a lot harder to make habit change. So think about things that you can implement to start to calm your nervous system and regulate it. Breath work, meditation, tai chi, exercise, eating well, making sure you're, drinking enough water, good quality water, making sure you're socializing. Do the things to take care of yourself. Every little thing matters. Every little thing you do is going to take a little bit out of that stress bucket. I realize you might not be able to get rid of an awful boss, but if you take care of your body, it's going to help calm it down. It's going to make habit change a little bit easier.
Mm.
The last thing is frontal lobe activation. We need our frontal lobe to have executive functioning. And we need executive functioning in order to make habit change. We need something called inhibition. Inhibition is your brain's ability to stop yourself from doing the things that you inherently want to do, right? I'd rather sit on the couch than go to the gym. I'd rather, smoke the cigarette than not. So we need inhibition. So a lot of the work that I do with people is the training your brain for peak performance part. Also, the big part of it is brain training to help activate your frontal lobe so you can use it better and it helps you in making habit change.
Okay, so how do we activate the
How do we
frontal?
activate our frontal lobe?
Like,
Yes.
can I just like tap it and say, hello, come on, let's
Wake
go?
it up a bit, wake it up a bit. Yes. So there's different ways. First of all, things like exercise, especially weightlifting, are great frontal lobe activators.
Yes.
Yes. So that,
We just harp on that in
yes.
this summit with clients. It's like you gotta lift weights, you gotta do strength training.
Yes, yes, yes. I was a personal trainer for 5 years while I was working at Bellevue on the side, and it was so amazing and transform. Like it was amazing to see what happened with my patients or my clients at the time when they started weight training just for their mental health, which is why I integrate everything that I do into my practice. I don't think therapy should be void of movement, and I encourage all my patients, if they can, if they feel comfortable, if it's something that interests them, to weight train. I teach them, the basic primal pattern movements and what to do when they go to the gym, because it's very intimidating for a lot of especially women to go to the gym and lift weights.
Yeah. And is it, sorry, I'm really curious. Is it the
Yeah.
actual just movement between left, right side of the brain and the way that your body that the way that you're moving that activates the brain? Because the reason I'm asking is we had one of our first experts was a functional movement yoga teacher, and she like goes back into like, kind of like childlike movements to help retrain your
Yeah.
brain. So this is all what we're talking about right now?
Yes. So yes,
Mhm.
definitely the child movements are awesome to help with the brain activation and coordination. When it comes to weightlifting and right, we know now that any exercise will light up the brain and help activate it and help people just feel better overall. But weightlifting in particular, when you're weightlifting, you have to focus and feel the muscle. So that is
Mhm.
a lot of the frontal lobe driving force, is that attention on the feeling and sensation on the muscle. And what's really cool about weightlifting is you don't just get the physical benefits, but the emotional, mental benefits of I have to do something that's a little uncomfortable, right? In order to actually put on strength and muscle mass, you need to push yourself outside your comfort zone. You don't want to go too far out of your comfort zone because then you might injure yourself. But you do have to push yourself just enough to create strain and resistance on the muscle. And without resistance, there is no growth, whether it's in the gym or in making habit change.
Wow, that's so cool. All
Yeah.
right. So, like, ladies, you like to multitask. And even when you're
Yes.
strength training, weightlifting, you're multitasking. I love this.
Yes,
All
yes,
right. Let's,
exactly, exactly. So another way that I love, love, love to have my patients activate their frontal lobe is a game. It's actually a psychology test, but it can also be a game. It's called the Stroop effect. And I'm going to show it to you. I'll show it to you on my phone really quickly because I don't have any usually I have cards prepared, but it's really fun because what it is, I'm going to pull up the app, and it's great because you can just have the app on your phone. And
how do you
what it
spell
is
shrew?
you have to say the color the word is written in.
Oh,
Okay, so it says green, but it's written in red, so the answer is red. Does does that make sense?
yeah, that sounds hard. And then you have to push the red that's written in green.
Yeah, so then
Oh
they try
my
to confuse
gosh.
you at the bottom. So here it says purple, but it's written in yellow, so the answer is yellow.
Oh my God.
Should I test you? Do you want to say this one?
Wait, so it's blue, but it looks to me it's written in yellow, so I have, or orange, so I have to tap orange.
Yes,
That's
correct.
written in blue.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This actually is kind of fun. So you'd push the red one because it's written in green.
No, so
No, you
actually
push the green that's written.
yes,
See,
just
I
focus on the naming the color it's written in, even though then they mess you up. I know it's very confusing, right?
oh my gosh. So I'd have
Yeah.
to it's written so purple is the yellow or the purple is no, I have to say Wow, my frontal lobe needs
No, no,
help,
no. And
Elyse.
I know, no, I just, I threw it, no, no, it takes a few minutes to figure this out. It's very confusing in the beginning. It's very confusing in the
No,
beginning.
actually, I love games and challenges, so I'm
Yeah.
totally gonna download this, and I clearly need some activation right here. So, but
You're also running an entire summit right now, so there's a lot going on. But
I
no,
know, but I'm also an overachiever, and I like to like do everything
do
I
it
can
right, do it
to
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
improve. So,
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's Stroop, Stroop, if anyone is looking for it. Unfortunately, I haven't found one for an Android, but it is for an iPhone in the App Store.
okay, well, I'm so sorry, Android users, but I will put that link in the page for people to click on just so it's easier.
Yes,
We don't want to
definitely.
challenge you all the time.
To have to go look for it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's a real fun one to do.
that is fun.
Yeah, I also have different coordination charts that I hang up in my office. So, they'll have it's kind of be lines of arrows going in different directions. So, an arrow up, an arrow to the left, an arrow to the right, an arrow down, and it just repeats different, it's just different arrows in different directions. And I'll have the person, maybe if the arrow is up, they jump up. If the arrow is down, they squat. If the arrow is to the left, they do a side lunge to the left. If the arrow is to the
Mm,
right, they do a side lunge to the right. And they follow the chart, and they just have to do the same thing. They have to do the exercise that coordinates with the direction of the arrow.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. And this all turns on our frontal lobe.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Any
Wow.
sort of following directions. If you've ever seen sometimes at gyms or different kind of like brain training places where you have different lights that light up. It's kind of like hit the what's that game?
Oh,
The
whack-a-mole?
whack-a-mole. It's like that.
I
Like
love that
the
game.
lights, you have to press the lights as they go off. So
Yeah,
different things like
interesting.
that. Yeah. Yeah. And
So
but I was to say any type crossword puzzles, different, Wordle games, things like that. We'll definitely
we're
Scrabble.
big into the New York Times, all those games on the app where there's like connections and Sudoku and
Yes.
there's a word spelling bee. So all of those are turning on. Okay, I need to do more games. Um,
Yeah. Play
yeah,
more
this is so
games.
fascinating. And fun side note is when you were describing what you need to do habit change, and part of it is turning on your frontal lobe. I was like, wow, my teenager, I understand why he's failing now. At changing any habits, he has no activation here.
Yes, yes, it's so important. And what's fun about it is play also, and we need play in our lives. We need play
Yeah.
to actually have habit change and success because your brain needs a break from only ever focusing on like the outcome. Play is unstructured without any sort of goal. And that allows you to try new things without pressure and be creative. And then you can go back and be like, oh, like, what did I learn from that? What did I gain from that? And your brain has a chance to operate in a different area because as adults,
Mm.
especially women, perimenopause, menopausal, we don't really have an opportunity to play. And play is so fun. It's so fun and it's so fun. And I didn't learn that until really the last few years of my life, how important play was. But
You
that
know,
will make you more successful too.
you're not the first expert to bring up the vitamin F factor. Fun.
Ah,
Vitamin F for
yes,
fun. Like, I think we've had three or four experts already mention that. So I love that. It's kind of an underflowing theme to this summit is vitamin F, which,
vitamin F. I
and
love it.
I think you're spot on. I think many, if not most, sadly, women have forgotten or don't have the time or don't give themselves the time
Yes,
to have
yes,
fun. In fact, sometimes I think I forget how to have fun
yeah,
because I'm so used to, feeding the kids and doing the work and taking out the trash and driving, all of there's so many things. The list is so long, right? It's a never ending list. And I
yeah.
think what I'm hearing from you is going back to also the stress bucket is between the stress bucket and the fun is that is a very critical part of habit changing on this journey of health transformation.
Exactly. Very much so. And your brain will thank you, especially if you're looking for peak performance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think everyone here is. Okay, so
Yes.
now are we ready to
Yes.
actually change the
We are
habits?
ready to change. We are ready to make
Okay.
change. Yes.
So what do we do then? Like, do we just have a goal for, you know, an endpoint that we're looking to achieve?
Mhm.
How do you work with clients?
Pick, really get very specific in what you want to do, right? You have that larger dream and that larger vision, but boil it down to what is one easy task that you can do. Because when you try to take on too many things or make the habit change too big, once again, not sustainable, probably not going to last very long. So really pick one specific thing. And then you want to make sure it lives in the calendar or it is connected to another already established habit. And I know a lot of the habit books talk about this, you know, like the Charles Duhigg book and
The
the
habit stacking?
habit. Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
if it doesn't live in the calendar or it's not triggered, you're not going to remember to do that. I mean, how many times you're like, oh, I thought I was gonna go, do that thing, and I totally forgot. I like the no.
Yeah, like I was gonna work out, but then
Yes,
I didn't have time.
exactly. The end of the day has come, and you're like, oh, I never did that thing I said I was gonna do, right? So, it could be as simple as you pair your breath work while you brew your coffee in the morning, right? The coffee triggers the breath work, you know? It could be that you have it actually scheduled out in your calendar. You have an alarm go off as a reminder. Something needs to remind you to do the actual thing, or else it's probably not going to happen.
And I'm guessing one day of reminders is not enough.
No, no, definitely not. Definitely not. You need to keep it consistent and long term and make it reasonable, right? They say the SMART goals. I think it's like specific, measurable.
Achievable,
Yes,
something realistic and
and measurable. Wait, no,
yeah,
measurable is
I
time.
think we may have to
It might be
end
time. I don't
time.
know. I never
We
actually, I
may have to
rarely.
Google that one,
Yes,
people.
I'm
But
sorry
you can
about
go
that.
do you can go Google it. No, I think
True,
what
yes.
you basically said everything that they are. And
Mhm.
I have a question. Have you heard this is kind of thrown out in the health sphere a lot, is like, oh, it takes 21 days to change a habit. Is that true?
Mhm. I kind of, there's a lot of, I feel like there's so many different things of like, it's 21 days, it's 60 days, it's this many hours. And I'm not actually sure if there's a specific timeline. What I think is that when you do something consistently enough and you start to reap the benefits, that is when your brain actually goes, okay, this makes sense. Like, I actually feel worse when I don't do this thing, right? Like, for me, I made it a habit every day to get out on my roof and get sunlight in my eyes. I live in New York City. There's like, I don't have a backyard and I don't always want to do it, right? But I know that I will always feel better after I do it every time, to the point that now my body has been conditioned that if I don't do it, I don't feel good. So
Mhm.
once that kind of clicks, that's really when it becomes a habit. That's when it's solidified, right? Your brain now really understands, oh, this is actually helping me towards my goals. Because in the beginning, you might not see the benefits, right? You might not feel the benefits of eating differently or working out right away. But when you start to do it consistently, that's really when it gets solidified in your body. And it's like, okay, now I get why I'm doing this.
And I'm sure it's different for every person because if
Yeah.
you are coming from, let's say you're starting at a place of like a huge deficit in your health, maybe your gut is just really not happy. You may change your diet and you might feel results very quickly because you had so many negative things going on in your gut, whereas someone else might be starting from a further like a place of more optimal health, I should say, and they might change their diet and not feel it quite as much or as soon because they already started at a place where there just wasn't a lot of like change that they needed. So
Right.
everyone sounds like it'd be individual for everyone.
It's very individual. It's very
Yeah.
individual. So, and that's the thing about how I work. And I think the best practitioners really are the ones that can understand that people operate in different ways, that everyone's body is different, everyone's nervous system is different. Even talking about how people respond to internal versus external expectations is different. So they can really, so then the practitioner you're working with can really make a plan that works
Yeah.
for you, and gives you a realistic expectations on timeline of when you might
Uh,
start to see changes.
Absolutely. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, like, what happens if we fall off the wagon?
Yes, yes. So if you fall off the wagon, like we said earlier, data collect, recognize that A, the self-compassion, right? That's the biggest part. And B is data collection. Like understand, where did things go wrong? You know, did you think about skills, tools, and time? Did you prepare appropriately for your, the habit change you want to
Mhm.
make? Is this habit not actually connected to your larger why? Right? Like maybe you were successful for a few weeks, but it's not, you're not being honest with yourself that this thing doesn't really matter. So start to reflect on those things instead of forcing yourself into it. Really think about, like, is this really what I want? And am I actually giving myself the appropriate time and to actually make it happen? You know,
Yeah.
you may not have the time right now. Maybe you really, really want to do something, but life is just way too hectic and busy and crazy, and it's not realistic for you to do this new thing,
Yeah.
you
That's so
know?
good. Well, and then you can just take that information, maybe tweak some things and start. Maybe you don't even have to go back to square one. Maybe what was missing was somewhere in the middle and you could just start there again. So I love
Yes.
this because you basically built us out a roadmap
Yes.
of, what it takes to successfully change a habit in your life and how to train your brain. I mean,
Hmm.
that's so important.
Hmm.
And I think that the cherry on top is working with someone that can help you through all that instead of having to do it on your own.
Exactly. Especially if you're one of those people who does respond better to external expectations, right? Hiring a coach, hiring a therapist, hiring a nutritionist or
Yeah.
hormone expert, someone to guide you and hold you accountable and actually build out that plan for you will be really helpful. If you're someone who I get calls all the time from potential clients and patients who say, I I I just sat and talk therapy all the time. I need someone who's hands-on. I need someone who's interactive, right?
They
So
want action.
yes, action.
Yes,
Action.
because
Exactly. That's
it starts with like identifying changes, right? Identifying ways that you can improve, but then you have to take action on it.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And we all need a cheerleader. We all need coaches,
Yes.
like that's the reality of it. I have my coaches and therapists that I work with, right, who pull me accountable for things, and it makes the process a lot smoother and easier. It's so great to have someone hold your hand to cheer you on, to help you troubleshoot and figure out where things didn't go well and
Yeah.
where you can improve upon. So I think it's important, like when if you're working with someone, you want to work with someone, ask them, what is your approach? Like, this is what I'm looking for. Is that something you can provide? Can you
Yeah.
provide me with helping create a roadmap and give me more interactive experience and accountability?
It's fascinating to me everything that you've outlined because I mean we're very different backgrounds in our education and who we work with. And my title is nutritionist, and yet we both kind of use the same methodology. We both start with like, what is your why? And I
Yes,
think that's actually a good marker of if people are looking for a practitioner to work with in whatever personal fitness training, therapy,
absolutely.
whatever you're looking for, nutrition, if that person is going to ask you about your vision, but what's your why
Mhm.
first as a starting place, that's probably a good sign.
Absolutely. Because you, 1,000%. I love that you said that because you want a practitioner who's invested in your success. When my patients come in and they tell me they succeeded at something, even if we've been working on it for months and months and months, I am so excited.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest joy for me to see someone take the work that we've done and actually translate it into their real life and make the changes they want. And I mean, like if like find someone who's invested in you. Find someone who cares enough that they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did this thing."
Yes.
Oh.
Such good advice. Elyse, speaking of finding someone, how can people find you? Are you on social media? What's your website? And also, why don't you tell us you're offering everyone a free gift, the Nutrition and Mental Health Guide. And the
Yes.
link is on the same page here, but why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how to find you?
Yes, absolutely. So my Instagram and TikTok handles are nerdy therapist, but nerdy like neurology, NEURDY _therapist. Um, you can email me at Elyse, and we'll put this in, Elyse at nerdytherapy.com, and the website is nerdytherapy.com. So you can find me there. The nutrition and mental health guide is something I put together because I realized when I was working with my patients, I wanted them to just understand the basics of nutrition. A lot of what I talk about is not what to eat, but how to figure out what your unique body needs, and talking about the connection between the physical body and our mental health state. So that's where that guide that really dives into and it has a lot. There's a food log that you can fill out, and just figuring out, like, how did I sleep at night, and how did I feel when I woke up, and all these different things. So it's kind of like, it was something I was repeating over and over again to patients in every session. I was like, I just gotta make a guide and, like, give it to them. So yeah,
How
so
the
that's,
best guides are coming. That's how they're made.
yes, I'm learning that. I'm learning that. Yes.
This has been so informative. And I think many of us are going to watch this again and kind of take some notes and really assess, like, what is my why? What do I want? And that's a great place to start. So if you are watching this and you are wondering, or maybe you're needing some direction, like, reach out to Elyse, reach out to me, find someone, because I think the worst place to be is in a place where you're feeling stuck.
Yes.
So moving forward, however that looks for you, is what we want to empower you to feel today. And
Definitely.
I
Yeah.
think you definitely helped in that regard, Elyse. Thank you so much.
I hope so. I hope so. Yes. If anyone has any questions or, anything, please feel free to reach out. I reach out, email, social media, however works best.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. This was awesome.